Well, it's here, at least for the moment. Springtime in Vermont. After a long winter, it's finally time to start preparing the bikes for a season of riding, and the promised look at my faithful 42-year-old touring bicycle. Beginning on June 3rd, I'll be taking a train out to Seattle, and this year's ride will take me from Seattle to Jackson, Wyoming, along a 1,500-mile route that takes me through the North Cascades, northern Idaho, into Montana, Glacier National Park, and then following the Rockies down to the Tetons of Wyoming, where I'll end this year's segment. But what I wanted to do today was give you the promised look at this 42-year-old companion of mine that has been Trans-America twice, multiple shorter tours, including last fall's ride from Seattle down to San Francisco along the Pacific Northwest coast. So let's get started. Well, let's begin with the frame. The frame is the core of any bike around which the build begins. This frame I purchased in 1984. It was built by Stephen Woodrup in Leeds, England. A custom build, and I used it as the framework, so to speak, for my ultimate touring bike that I had dreamed of and ended up selling my automobile so that I could afford the build. This frame is a steel frame. It is what I guess they called, or might still call, a sport touring model. It was designed with more upright angles than a classic touring bike. What I was looking for was a perhaps sportier ride. I was looking for something that, when loaded, would resemble what a classic frame geometry of a touring bike might be unloaded. This frame is built with Reynolds 531 tubing. It is all double butted. The bottom bracket is by Chinelli. The dropouts are Campagnolo. One of my favorite little details of the frame is the wraparound seat stays. The seat stays wrap right up and around in a continuous flow over the top tube alongside of the seat tube. From that frame, I started the build with the wheels, which are actually not the wheels on the bike today. The wheels that I built up in 1984 were centered around Campagnolo record hubs. Mavic M40, I think, was the model. Rims, 36 spokes. What I found over multiple tours and twice Trans Am is that those wheels just didn't have enough strength in order to carry a fully loaded touring bike. The front wheel was fine, but the rear wheel had some failings, most notably when a spoke pulled the hub flange, and I had to replace the hub on the second time cross-country in Jackson, Wyoming. So for my recent tours, what I've taken to is a new set of wheels that are built up around the Velocity Dyad rims, and it was a little bit of a challenge trying to find some components, new components that would fit in the frame dimensions of this bike. The particular dimension was the rear dropout spacing. In 1984, the 6-speed hadn't been around for that long, and it uses 126 millimeter dropout spacing. The only suitable set of hubs that I could find were from Velocity Orange, and they are a high flanged hub that I built up the new wheels around. Again, 36 spoke, 3-cross wheels. I've been real pleased with them. They went the 1,100 miles last fall without a hiccup, still as perfectly true as the day I rolled out of Seattle carrying, I think my load is somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 to 50 pounds when everything is added up. So new wheels, but otherwise it's the same bike from 1984, same bike that went Trans-America in 1985, same bike that went Trans-America again in 1989, and is now continuing with 1,000 plus mile fully loaded tours in 2026. After the wheels, the next component to take a look at here is what I'm running for brakes in today's day and age of disc braked everything. I'm still running Campagnolo record side pull brakes. They have reliably stopped me down many a Rocky Mountain switchback descent. They certainly aren't as strong on wet roads when the rims get wet as a disc brake, but they do just fine, and as is my preference for not riding in the rain. When long distance touring, I eventually came to a point of saying it's just not worth it for the sake of slogging out miles. So if it rains, I maybe take some downtime in a library or catch up on writing in my tent or some other shelter and just wait until conditions dry. And next up, the derailleurs that I used back in I think it was the late 70s, early 80s, a bicycling magazine editor did tests of various derailleurs and derailleurs that were capable of handling the wide gear ratios that were becoming common on touring bikes in the heyday of Trans-America rides, when Bike Centennial had introduced us to the first ride across America on the Trans Am route in 1976. People started to look for wider gearing than what might be available on the typical 10-speed of the time. And he, in his tests, found the Heuret Duopar, which the name is derived from dual parallelogram, was the absolute best in terms of wide range gearing. There were some Suntour units that were almost as good, but I ended up going with his recommendation for the Duopar rear derailleur, the titanium version. Up front, I ended up with a Cyclone M2 from Suntour to handle the triple chain rings. I didn't note earlier, this rear cluster is not like today's free hub sorts of designs. This is the old free wheel, where the freewheeling mechanism, the ratcheting mechanism, unlike today's where it's built into the hub, this free wheel, the ratcheting mechanism is actually built into the freewheel cluster. And one of the things that was beautiful about these old freewheels and the way that they were sold back at the time when I put this bike together is that it was totally a build your own mix and match. You didn't, just go and get a 13 through 30 cluster and accept everything that was in between. You were able to pick every single cog to your own specification, and whenever you walked into a bike shop, one of the common items was a pegboard on the wall and cogs that covered the entire range, and you just told the shop guys, yeah, I want a 13, I want a 15, etc., etc., and you assembled it on the freewheel. This bike runs a 6-speed rear freewheel cluster. When it came time to setting up the front cranks, I ended up with a beautiful design that had been introduced at the time by Specialized, very clean, unlike some of the others that were on the market at the time. This one had a taper into the tapered shaft on the bottom bracket, and that prevented any ankle banging on that crank. The gearing on this bike is what's called half-step plus granny. For anyone who's familiar with the shifting pattern of these derailleur bikes, you know that it's not just this easy pattern of, you know, starting out with your smallest cog on the rear and going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., and shifting your chain ring to another one up front and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The half-step gearing that I chose for this bike, and the combination of chain rings up front and cogs on the rear freewheel cluster, allow what's called a half-step progression. And the way it works is that in order to shift a large step, you shift one cog on the rear cluster. If you need something in between, you can get a half step by shifting from one chain ring to the next on your front derailleur. So the chain rings that are on here are 50, 46, and 28 teeth up front, and then I've got a 13 through, I think it's 32 on the rear. I'll have to check on that, which gives me, well, I'll wait till I'm back at my charts to determine or to let you know what the range of gearing is. It gives me a high gear of somewhere up around 100 inches and a low gear of somewhere down in the low 20s, maybe 23 gear inches. So it has been sufficient for all of my tours, which tend to be on-road, on pavement. My long-distance touring has not, to this point, included off-road, and I've done a little bit of gravel touring, but that's on another bike, which is my Surly Ogre, that maybe I'll introduce you to one of these days. The shifters are from the time of friction shifters. A lot of tourists were running bar end shifters back in that era. I went with the simple and lighter weight down tube mounted friction shifters. These are also Campy record. Campy was still, Campy was about to reach its pinnacle at the top of bicycle componentry. After the mid-'80s, Campy started to go into what many of us considered a decline in their offerings, but up through the classic Campy record components of the early to mid-'80s, there was simply nothing better. I, as a matter of fact, still retain the Campy quick releases, even though I've built up new wheels around the Velocity Orange rims. The Campagnolo quick releases are still there. The headset on this bike is, as with much of the other componentry, Campagnolo record. I think it's a 1-inch, which was common at the time. Moving on, the stem that I chose for this bike is it's a Cinelli design. One of the things that I absolutely loved about it was the hidden binder bolt in the front of the stem. The binder bolt is actually up underneath, and it gives the stem a nice clean look, and it's classic Cinelli. You'll note that the handlebar is wrapped with leather. This is a piece that's been on the bike since the early 80s when I hand stitched it on the bar. It has seen now tens of thousands of miles of use, and it's still in immaculate condition. Here's a look at the brake levers, our Campy record to go with the Campy brakes. The seat post that I selected for this bike is, I'm not sure what it is. It was not one of the recognizable names back in the day that I selected it. I am surprised that I didn't go with the classic Campagnolo seat post, but in this case, I liked the fluted design with the black painted cutouts in the seat post. So I have no idea what brand it is, but it's still looking good after 42 years. The saddle is classic Brooks B17. I remember when I bought my first 10-speed bicycle when I was a freshman in high school. It was a Dawes Galaxy, and it came with a Brooks leather saddle, and I was just convinced that that was the most uncomfortable thing ever, and I quickly swapped it out for a synthetic saddle. But I since came around in terms of Brooks leather saddles, and although they require a little bit of care underway in terms of preventing them from getting soaked, they are, in my opinion, the most comfortable saddle that I've ever ridden. They definitely take a little bit of breaking in, but once they're broken in, they fit you like a well-worn pair of jeans, and there really is nothing like a Brooks leather saddle in my view. My original racks on this touring bike were made by Blackburn, as is the bottle cages that I have to this day. Those are the original 1984 bottle cages, but I've switched to the tubus racks. The Blackburns had I had on them mounted, it was a proprietary mount for Eclipse panniers. I'm now running tubus stainless steel racks, and up front the lowrider, classic touring style panniers down low, centered on the front wheel. Something that I had taken off when I was showing you this bike was the frame fit Silca pump, which was common at the time. This one, like so much on this bike, is running a Campagnolo head on the pump. Not sure if you'll be able to see the Campagnolo stamped in the pump head, but these pumps just fit into the frame and snapped into place under the top tube, and it was just a real convenient place to carry the pump. So I'm pretty meticulous when it comes to maintenance of my bicycles, and before every tour I take them down to the bare frame, stripping every component, pulling those components apart. What it does is it gives me an opportunity to thoroughly clean every nook and cranny of my bicycle, but more importantly, I think, is that it gives me a chance to have a very close look at everything and observe for any signs of wear or potential malfunction. Now that everything is cleaned, inspected, reassembled, lubed and adjusted, this 42-year-old classic is ready to roll out of Seattle in June. Fully loaded, self-contained, out on tour once again. It's a travel formula that's been working for my entire adult life. Familiar, comfortable, and durable. As with most things these days, the bike industry relies on making money by constantly introducing us to something new. My own philosophy, however, has always been one of avoiding today's disposable culture. Begin by seeking out high-quality, repairable goods, maintain them well, and simply enjoy the ride. I'll be looking forward to seeing you again out on the road.